Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to another Minecraft update news videos. They're the best type of update news to share with you all because a brand new beta or snapshot version has just launched for Minecraft Java Edition. This is of course a never update snapshot, and that is the next big update coming to both Java and Bedrock, so it's pretty exciting because for the first time we've seen two brand new features right here. One is the target block, which was hinted and spoken about in Minecon, but now we can actually play with it for ourselves in the flesh, and the other is the crying obsidian, something that was mentioned several years ago and hasn't been mentioned since then, so to see this come into Minecraft years later is so fascinating. We have both of these blocks as well as changes to nether farming, including trying to make holes more useful, as well as changes to the nether as a whole to make user requested things in there, including a change to the bartering system to make it better for survival players. This is a big snapshot for a lot of reasons, and I want to talk about why and how it's so exciting in today's video, which I hope you all do enjoy, like it if so. But let's dive straight into it by mentioning it's called Snapshot 20W09A, and a lot of people don't explain that, but it is because it's the first snapshot in the 9th week of 2020, nothing to do with the fact that it's 1.16, which will be the finished name of this snapshot. And yeah, I can't contain my excitement anymore. We have to talk directly about crying obsidian. This is such an exciting thing to see coming back into Minecraft after so many years. In case you are curious, crying obsidian was mentioned literally in the earliest days of Minecraft as a way to maybe set spawn, or maybe to basically have things float before everything in Minecraft floated by itself, as you can see looking around me right now, including, by the way, the crying obsidian itself, because guess what? It's not being added to the game just as a fun texture, just as a reference to that old thing that existed forever ago in Minecraft, but instead it is something that physically exists and physically does cry as well. And that crying is kind of interesting on a single block. I mean, when you look at it right there, you might have noticed how every now and then there's a particle coming off it, just here and there, but when you have a lot of the blocks together, you have this weird crying rain coming down from above. I mean, purple rain, not something I expected to see in a Minecraft video, but here we are regardless. So this is something that I never, in my wildest expectations, would have imagined coming into Minecraft, particularly in this update. Haha, funny, I know. But no, seriously, crying obsidian is a huge thing to see coming to the game, because it was literally 2012 when it was last mentioned, and Jeb said, oh yeah, so we can add that to the game as soon as we increase the number of blocks that are possible in Minecraft, something that only happened a couple of years ago. And as a result of that, we now have crying obsidian, because there's, again, they increase the number of blocks available, and it makes things like this possible, which I love as a feature. So yeah, there we go, crying obsidian, how nice that is. You might question, like, okay, you've spoken about how exciting the journey is, but what does it do, Toycat? And the simple answer to that one is it doesn't really do anything. I know this is kind of sad, but like, yeah, crying obsidian just exists. It's a pretty block. It kind of looks like glazed terracotta in some way, except it has the crying animation. We don't know what the final function for crying obsidian is, but we know it won't just be an aesthetic block like it is right now, because King B Dogs, who is the developer who added it to this snapshot, in case you're curious, the Aether developer too, in case that spikes your curiosity, but he directly said that, yeah, the function is coming later. Right now, we just have a block that exists. We have a way to get it, which is with the brand new bartering system, by the way, and that's about it for now. So let's talk about the other brand new block in this update, because, as much as I, cry over the lack of details regarding this block, you know what? I feel like we should keep this video on target and talk about this block instead. So yeah, this brand new block right here is, of course, something we saw mentioned at Minecon Live last year, or Minecon Earth, whatever they call it these days. Basically, we saw it mentioned in the live Minecraft show where they spoke about the Nether update, and they said there'd be a brand new block which would measure the input you put in there for redstone purposes. Right now, you can put a button on a block and it's kind of the same thing, but this one actually measures how accurate you are, and also it only measures it for a split second. So if I fire at the very edges, as you can see, we get a redstone signal that's 3 redstone strong, or 4 because you include this. If we fire a little bit closer to the center, you can see how we get one that's like 7 or 8 strong, and if we can hit the bullseye, which is surprisingly hard to do even up close, you can see how it goes even further than that. It is a block which measures how accurate you are, and that is something that's really fun, because it doesn't just measure bow and arrows or crossbows, as you might imagine. It can measure the trident, which I think is a form of beauty, and even, this is surprising and it's a bit weird, but it does exist, it can even measure the snowballs and how well you hit those as well. So yeah, fun fact, there is a brand new block which can measure inputs, and the easy thing to do is this. Like, this is something I've seen a lot of people use as their like kind of measurement. Like, yeah, you put a bunch of glowstone lamps and you can show someone's score. This is a great way to practice your accuracy, given that in this update they've made bows more accurate, or in the combat update they're making bows more accurate, which we imagine is this one. So if you want to practice your bow skills now that the bow aim actually means a lot more than before, that's a great block for it, right? But I also think the other thing about this, you know, again, besides just practicing your aim, is you can use this for, again, complex redstone contraptions based on the quality of someone's aim. You can make sure that someone has to hit the bullseye and they have to get a score of 14, and if they don't, if they instead get one of these, you know, if they get a score of 3 or 5 or 7, you can have different redstone things activate. Again, I'm just using simple redstone lamps to show that it does work that way, but unless you can activate that, maybe we can activate some death trap, or maybe we activate different doors based on how accurate you are, which, you know, again, rewards people if they can get the right one, if they can get the bullseye, and if they can't get the bullseye, another door opens instead. You can also have pistons move the block away, because again, this only activates for a very short, you know, brief second, unlike the button. It's literally, you know, half a second, and then it turns off just afterwards. So yeah, you can reward people for different levels of accuracy, whether that be small, whether that be less small, whether that be medium, or whether that be a super strong one. I love that the target block exists, and I feel like the redstone contraption possibilities for people who love play around that sort of stuff is going to be great. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what people do with that. So yeah, these are the two brand new blocks in this update. We've got Crying Obsidian and we've got the target block. It has been mentioned, again, I want to re-mention this right now, that Crying Obsidian does not, unlike, you know, regular Obsidian, work for portals, as you can see right there. This doesn't work, but this one suspiciously does. And you know what? It's great because it allows us to go into the Nether. And while we're here, I guess I should mention one of the most feminist features that Minecraft has added for a while. I really like this one. It's a really progressive, you know, addition to Minecraft, because Minecraft has changed the way that Nether Warp blocks work, as in not Nether Warts the item, Nether Warts when you combine them together to make the Nether Warp block, because this is now much more easily hurt using the hose. The harmful implication that you shouldn't waste your resources on a hoe is now finally going to be going away, because hoes actually are going to have some more uses, particularly, again, Nether Warp blocks, like they're now mined much faster by hoes, as you can see. Here is my fist mining speed, as you can see. It's just not as good as using a hoe or just using a gas fireball, apparently. But yeah, this is a thing you can do as of this brand new update. It's pretty fun, it's pretty great, but there's another farming related change that isn't me making a terrible joke that's probably got some angry comments already, because fun fact, there are crimson fungi and there are warp fungus in this update, right? Like there are, I guess, warp fungi as well. I mean, I guess it depends on whether it's one or plural, but anyway, so there's both these things, and you can place them on, you know, each other if you want. You can have red on blue and you can have blue on red, but as of this update, they've made it so if you want to have giant mushrooms, if you want to have the things which are quite distinctive, you have to place them on the correct, again, you have to have red fungi on the red, you know, ground. You have to have blue fungi on the warp ground if you want to have giant fungi, which, if you're curious, kind of like in the overworld, you can just use bone meal, and then boom, you make yourself a giant fungus, or you boom, and you make yourself a giant crimson one as well. Wow, the red one's bigger than the blue one. I don't know what I'm really going for with that, but you know what? Fun fact, you can now use these for that. Also, the other thing you can do is you can plant them inside of flower pots. This is something I really love as a feature because, like, oh, look at this. You can have little flower pots filled with things. I think it's a wonderful little way to use, you know, both of these new items and actually have a real, you know, decorative use for them in the overworld, because not everyone wants to bring around the, you know, all the blocks in the Nether. So being able to do this, really nice way to have, again, directions to something that's blue or directions to something that's red if you want to do it that way instead. And that rhyme was absolutely beautiful. I'm a poet that wasn't aware of that fact. Anyway, with that said, let's go ahead and let's mention something else which I think is amazing. Because the texture for the zombie pigman has changed. This is because they've changed the name of the zombie pigman to be the zombified piglin instead, because it's no longer a zombie pigman. It's not a pigman who turned into a zombie. It's a piglin who has turned into a zombie instead. As you can see, it's pretty much the old texture, but with a few key differences. It's a little bit of a thicker boy, as you can see, and also you can see how that ear, just over there, is just a single ear. I think it's like a cute little rabbit. Like, it's lost one of its ears on the zombie side of its body, and on the other side, it's entirely fine. So, yeah, these are the result of if you bring a piglin to the overworld still. However, if you want to, this update is now confirmed that if you use, you know, like the, you know, commands and the MB dictator, you can actually make it so a piglin can survive in the overworld for creative and command players. Regular players, if you want piglins, you still have to find them in the Nether, which is something you might want to do after this update, because, yeah, fun fact, this update has changed piglin trading just a little bit. And so, I used a bunch of piglins, which I found over here, to trade for a bunch of things, not just glowstone and fire charges and the things we expected last time, but instead we've learned they've changed the trading system, supposedly to make it better for survival players. And so what I've noticed from that, because that doesn't really mean too much by itself, one, you can now get Crying Obsidian, which might be great for survival players. Two, it seems as though ender pearls are much more common than before. I could have gotten lucky though, because it's free, which isn't a large enough sample size. And also you get fire resistance potions, which is actually kind of great in my opinion. You get splash, you get regular, and the fact that they'll give you fire fire resistance potions along the way might be really quite genuinely useful. So yeah, keep that in mind. We got a brand new, piglin trading system, and again, the loot's been balanced for survival players. So I think it's good to see that they care about the survival community. I mean, it'd be weird if they didn't, right? Also, by the way, it's worth mentioning that Nether mobs aren't affected by lava, but after this update, they'll be pushed by it like it's a fluid regardless. Rather than just being able to stand in there infinitely, lava can now push Nether mobs if you want to, which means if you're making complex redstone systems in the Nether, or redstone farms rather, then guess what? You can now push zombie things from one place to another, albeit much slower than the water counterparts in the overworld. I think that's fun personally, and if you disagree, then I disagree with your life decisions. So how do you feel about that, internet? Also, another change, the reason I'm being creative for this one is because I wanted to show you something that's very hard to observe in survival. Instead of having a harsh transition from one to the other, instead it's much more faint. So with night vision, it's much clearer, so I can show you this right here. Instead of red going really, really, really fast to like the kind of normal purple from the normal Nether, you can see how it's a slow transition. And I think a much better example is if you go from this to a, crimson, or if you go from the crimson forest to the warp forest because of the extremeness of the difference there. So let me show you that. So here you can see that precise thing. Look how it's purple over here, and then look how we're going to the Nether, and it slowly transitions. This is much more thematic. This is something I'm glad they've added. It's like a heavily user-requested feature. It's something that even looked like it was true from the screenshots, although, they first released of this update, although that was apparently something else. And just, yeah, this is, how it's going to look. The 4 different Nether biomes are going to transition much, much better than previously they would. By the way, there is just 4 Nether biomes. It has to be mentioned, again, sadly enough, there is not going to be any more being added in this update. Because although they mentioned briefly at Minecon, live again, that there was like, oh yeah, we're going to add, a brand new biome and on top of the ones we've seen already. Lady Agnes confirmed this week either it was like a slip up or like they didn't have, a thing ready or they just didn't want to. But they confirmed that most likely there's not going to be another biome. The 4 we have right now are the 4 they're going to release with, which is something, again, the community seems to be wildly unhappy with. Again, personally, I feel like 4 it's nicer than 1. I mean, no one can disagree with that. But it's not as nice as 5. Can anyone disagree with that? Also, a fun feature in this update, because the new piglin trading, the new Nether stuff, all these things are popular features, but allow me to show you something that I think will redefine how you see this update. Because as we already knew, baby hoglins were a mob that aren't cared about by the piglins. They're not attacked. It's kind of, they're just kind of neutral. They do their own little thing. They don't need to attack the piglins, and the piglins don't need to attack them. However, an adorable little feature they've added in this update, as we should hopefully see fairly soon, is that the baby, piglins, who previously, just had kind of no relationship with them, unless, even one was attacked. Now the baby piglins have gone a step further, because as you can see right here, baby piglins will ride the baby hoglins. This is so much more important than the fact that the piglins can survive in the overworld if you want via creative, because this is a thing that can naturally happen in Minecraft, and my god, is this the most adorable little thing you've ever seen. I mean, tell me you disagree, because I'll tell you you're wrong about that. This is so adorable, and you know what? If this doesn't change the way you see both these mobs, then I don't know what does. But yeah, to kind of, bring this, video to a close, because, again, there are, other changes, such as weeping vines, the Nether vines, which exist in the Nether, and which we saw earlier, or which you have seen endless amounts of if you've seen video coverage so far. You find them in the Crimson Forest. These are now actually vines in the sense that you can climb them, which I think that's a nice little change. Like, I think it's one that will be overlooked when this first comes out, but I think it will have some really nice changes as to how much you can use the Nether. But one of the changes that I think will affect how big this update is the use for crying obsidian. We still have questions about spawn points in the Nether. We still have questions about how the Nether can work as a survivable place, and I think crying obsidian is going to be the answer to some of those questions. So the last part of this video, now we've gone through what's actually in this update, I'll be very clear and talk about this as speculation, because again, like some people will be like, oh, my speculation, that's basically as good as fact. No, I mean, the facts of how things work are different to the speculation. Yeah, first of all, we have to mention, I don't think it will make different Nether portals to go to a brand new dimension. Again, as fun as that looks, as cool as this is, and a lot of people have shown off this way, I don't think it will be, in fact, that. I think the crying obsidian will instead, by the way, it's also worth mentioning that crying obsidian contrasts so perfectly with the target block. Can we all agree? I think the crying obsidian is going to be used for some brand new Nether function. The idea of setting your spawn point in the end totally makes sense to me, don't get me wrong. I think that beds being able to set your spawn point in the Nether is something that has been said by the Minecraft devs as something they intend to do in this update. So the idea of using crying obsidian to do the same thing doesn't make too much sense, especially given, like, if I have a big area of crying obsidian this big, which block sets my spawn point? Is it the last one I walk off? That seems like a weird system that's ripe for abuse, because you could set up people's spawns against their will. And again, it's something that was mentioned a long time ago, but doesn't seem like the best fairy to me. Instead, I imagine like, okay, so it's going to be like Obsidian, but better in some ways. Will that be used to craft something brand new? Maybe. I mean, a part of me loves the idea of like, what if it's like because the thing that makes the difference is the fact that it's Obsidian filled with something else. Maybe it's like an extra magical thing. A crafting table filled with, the extra magic that could give better enchantments makes sense, given that, like Netherite's coming out and that plays around the enchantment table. But I don't think they're going to mess around with the system like that just so, now, although I would love that. I think instead they're going to use it for some weird hybrid of decorative, function. Maybe you can make better portals that, like stay, lit no matter how much they get exploded for whatever reason you want there. Maybe it's going to be used as, just a really pretty aesthetic block that has, differences when it's used in the Nether. I don't know for sure, but this is one of the big mysteries now in this update that I have a billion different ideas for, none of which really seems, too great. Again, it's easy to just jump on board with the idea that, like, first comes up and, like seeing a sweaty block that's like, oh, this totally makes sense for that, makes sense. But I think the use for this might just surprise us. Or maybe I'll prove to be wrong. That's the cool thing about the internet. You can be wrong on it. Actually, you can't be wrong on the internet. People don't like that. But what I do know is that I hope you will enjoy this video. Like it if you liked it, share if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here. I make videos like this one every single time a snapshot/beta comes out. At least the exciting ones, let you know what's in there, because Minecraft is changing in lots of huge ways, and I never would have expected that after all these years, Crying Obsidian would have come back. But I'm very excited to see it regardless, and hell yes, I can't wait for the for more of this, for more of these details to come out, and I hope that we stay on target with seeing one of these every week and seeing this update before the end of the year, as the developers have in fact said. So thank you very much for watching this video, because I'll see you in the next one. Wait, turn on notifications or something. That's what YouTubers say at the end of videos, right? Goodbye.